Today's story is about a mother who quietly paid $40,000 in rent for her son over 4 straight years, every single month. She never complained, she just kept sending the money. But when she showed up at his wedding, her own son stopped her at the door. He looked her in the eye and said, "You don't belong here, Mom. This isn't a place for poor people." Then he grabbed her by the arm and forced her out in front of everyone. And before she could even speak, he slammed the door in her face. In that moment, something inside Clara Mitchell snapped. She shut down every financial support. No more money, no more help. And what happened next? No one saw coming. Now let's turn to Clara and listen as she tells her story in her own words.
My name is Clara Mitchell. For 40 years, I wore the white scrubs of a head nurse in a busy Seattle trauma ward. I've held the hands of strangers as they took their last breaths, and I've stayed awake for 36 hours straight just to make sure a patient's fever broke. I learned a long time ago that life is fragile and that the only thing that truly matters when the lights go out is family. I carried that philosophy into my retirement. My husband, Arthur, passed away 6 years ago, leaving me with a modest but comfortable inheritance and a beautiful home. He told me to use that money to finally relax, to see the world, and to enjoy the peace we worked so hard for. But I couldn't just sit back and relax while I saw my only son, Julian, struggling. I've always been a fixer. It's in my nature as a nurse. If someone is hurting, I want to heal them. If someone is lacking, I want to provide. I spent my golden years trying to be the perfect pillar for Julian and his wife, Vanessa. I was the silent provider, the one who never asked questions, the one who always had a fresh-baked pie on the table and a checkbook ready in my purse. I didn't realize that by trying to be their savior, I was actually becoming their victim. I was feeding their entitlement until it grew into a monster that eventually tried to consume me. After Arthur died, the silence in my house was heavy, and Julian knew exactly how to use it. It started with a phone call about a temporary setback. Julian had lost a mid-level management job, and Vanessa's freelance work was drying up. As a mother, you don't think twice. You jump into the fire to keep them warm. I told them I'd cover their rent, just $650 a month, until they got back on their feet. But weeks turned into months, and months into 4 long years. I became their invisible benefactor. I wasn't just paying the landlord. I was furnishing their entire existence. I bought the emerald green velvet sofa Julian loved, the $1,200 mahogany dining set where they hosted friends, and even the high-end organic fiber crib for my grandson. I remember standing in their living room, looking at things I had paid for, feeling a strange sense of pride. I thought I was building a safety net. I didn't realize I was weaving my own shroud. To keep their lives luxurious, I had to make my own life small. I stopped buying fresh produce and started living off generic brand canned soups and cardboard-tasting cereal. I canceled my cable subscription and stopped going to the theater with my friends because the kids needed a new car transmission or Vanessa needed a $900 dental crown. I even started skipping my own annual physicals to save on the copays, telling myself that Julian's iPhone upgrade was more important than my blood pressure medication. I was draining my late husband's legacy penny by penny into a black hole of ungratefulness. I sat at my small kitchen table, counting nickels, while they posted photos of their weekend getaways I indirectly financed. I told myself this was what good mothers did. I was a martyr in a lavender housecoat, and the people I was dying for didn't even notice I was bleeding. The day that finally broke me started like any other Tuesday. I had spent the entire morning in a state of excitement, humming to myself as I ironed a beautiful lavender silk dress I'd bought specifically for Julian and Vanessa's wedding. It had cost me $280, a small fortune for me now, but I wanted to look elegant standing next to my son. I had even bought a pair of silver heels that I knew would kill my back, but I wanted to be perfect for the photos. On my kitchen counter sat a card containing a $2,000 cashier's check. It was the last of my liquid savings, a final startup gift for their new life together. I called Julian around noon, my heart light. I wanted to ask if they'd finally settled on the waterfront venue we had discussed. Vanessa answered the phone. There was no, "Hello, Clara," or the usual sugary tone she used when she needed a favor. Her voice was flat, bored, and sharp as a scalpel. "Oh, Clara," she said, cutting me off mid-sentence with a dry, hollow laugh. "We actually decided to just get it over with. We went down to the courthouse yesterday morning. It was quick, no stress. We had a really exclusive dinner at that French bistro downtown afterward with a few people. It was very intimate. We only invited special people." The air left my lungs. The lavender dress on the hanger seemed to mock me. Special people. I stood there, clutching the phone so hard my knuckles turned white, staring at the $2,000 check on the counter. "I'm your mother. Julian is my only child," I whispered, but the line was already dead. I didn't hear from them for 7 days. No photos, no "wish you were there." Then, exactly 1 week later, my phone chimed. It was a text from Vanessa. It wasn't an apology. It was a command. "Clara, the rent transfer didn't hit. The landlord is blowing up Julian's phone and saying he'll start eviction if it's not paid by 5. You forgot the $650. Send it now." I stared at that message for a long time. The sweet grandmother who had lived in my skin for 70 years finally closed her eyes. In her place, the head nurse who had seen the worst of humanity took over. My hands didn't shake as I typed back, "I only help special people." The silence that followed my text message was the most honest moment I'd had with my son in years. I didn't wait for the inevitable storm of frantic calls or the half-baked apologies I knew would follow once they realized the well had run dry. I turned my phone off, sat down at my mahogany desk, and pulled out a stack of yellow legal pads. For the next 5 hours, I performed a silent audit of my own life. I pulled every bank statement from the last 4 years, every credit card bill, and every receipt for the furniture Julian and Vanessa were currently lounging on. The final number stared back at me in cold, hard ink. $40,200. That was the price of my misplaced devotion. I didn't feel like crying anymore. I felt like a general preparing for a siege. The next morning, I drove to the office of Mr. Sterling, a lawyer known for his work in elder law and financial protection. He didn't see a confused grandmother. He saw a woman who had been systematically bled white. "Clara," he said, reviewing the mountain of evidence, "this isn't just family drama. This is a predatory pattern." We didn't just close the bank accounts. We built a fortress around my life, starting with a legal paper trail that Julian could never erase. I thought the war would end with the frozen bank accounts, but I had underestimated the depths of their desperation. 2 days after I cut them off, Julian and Vanessa appeared on my porch. But they weren't alone. They had brought a man in a sharp gray suit, a lawyer named Mr. Halloway, and a look of feigned concern that made my skin crawl. They didn't come to beg for forgiveness. They came to take my keys. They served me with a petition for involuntary guardianship. In their filing, they claimed I was showing alarming signs of cognitive decline, citing my sudden hostility toward family and my irrational financial decisions as proof that I could no longer manage my estate. They wanted a judge to declare me mentally incompetent so Julian could be appointed my legal guardian, giving him full control over my home, my remaining savings, and my life. They were trying to bury me alive in a legal cage just to get to my checkbook. But I was miles ahead of them. I had already spent the previous afternoon with Dr. Aris, one of the most respected geriatric psychiatrists in Seattle. I wasn't just sane. I was sharper than the son who was trying to discard me. The courtroom was silent as Judge Henderson reviewed the evidence. Vanessa sat in the front row, dabbing at her eyes with a lace handkerchief, playing the part of the grieving daughter-in-law. Julian wouldn't even look at me. Their lawyer, Mr. Holloway, spoke about my alarming isolation and unexplained hostility. But then Mr. Sterling stood up. He didn't just talk. He showed the truth. He displayed the ledger of the $40,200 I had provided while they lived in luxury. He submitted the psychiatric report from Dr. Aris, which showed my cognitive scores were in the top 5% for my age group. The judge leaned over her bench, her eyes drilling into Julian. "Mr. Mitchell," she said, her voice like cracking ice, "it seems the only person confused here is you. Confused about the fact that your mother is a human being, not a revolving credit line. This petition is dismissed with prejudice. The karma was swift and absolute. Without my $650 a month, they couldn't cover the rent they had ignored for years. They were evicted 14 days later, moving into a cramped, damp basement apartment across town. I sold the house they were so eager to inherit and moved to a luxury apartment with a view of the Sound. I'm writing this from a balcony in the Mediterranean, a glass of wine in my hand, and my sister laughing in the background. I lost a son, but I found my life. And honestly, the view has never been clearer.
What a powerful and heartbreaking journey Clara had to endure just to reclaim her own life. But now I want to turn the floor over to you. What was the biggest lesson you took away from Clara's fight? And at what point do you think Julian and Vanessa went too far? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. It is important to note that this story was a fictional scenario and a dramatization created specifically for societal reform and awareness. We share these dark realities to shine a light on elder financial abuse, so that you can recognize the warning signs and ensure you don't repeat these toxic mistakes in your own family dynamics. Ultimately, karma proved that you cannot build a life on the back of someone else's sacrifice and expect it to stand. If you learned something valuable from this video today, please subscribe and hit the bell icon to join us daily.